And Yahweh planted a garden on the face of the earth, and there in the garden he placed his image inside a man whom he had formed with his own hands and filled with his own breath. And he called the man Adam. And in this garden was beauty and life, and all that Adam could desire. And Yahweh formed a helpmate for the man, so that man and woman could be fruitful and multiply the beauty of the garden and the image of God across the entire earth. But in the midst of the garden, bound to a single tree, was a serpent lying in wait, a serpent that carried with it a seed. Through the fruit of deception and pride, the serpent planted the seed of sin, first in the woman who had been formed from the man, then through the woman into the man who had been formed from fertile ground. Thus the seed of sin began to grow in the heart of man. Through this seed death entered into the world, and the garden became dark and uncaring. The beauty was tainted, the life was stained. No longer were the flowers pleasant to touch. Now they produced thorns that pierced the flesh and brought forth pain and blood. Thousands of years later, another man would visit another garden. But this man was special, and this garden was different. This man was the Messiah, anointed to be the second Adam and to redeem the failure of the first. This garden was where the oil of anointing found its genesis. The fruit of the labor of man, the olive, was grown here through much trouble. And unlike the first garden, anything produced from this place came at a cost of sweat. Small olive fruit was harvested here and pressed, giving this garden its name, Gethsemane, the oil press. The olives would be pressed until they were crushed, and only then would the blood of the olive flow. Priests would collect this blood, this olive oil, and through consecration and prayer, this blood of the olive will become the anointing oil of the temple of God. It was in this setting of this garden that the second Adam, Yahshua, the anointed one, the seed of the woman, the root of Jesse, the salvation of Yahweh, would come to pray. With only a few hours left before he fulfilled his namesake, he prayed. He prayed for God's mercy. He prayed for God's will. And still he prayed. The more he prayed, the more he was pressed, but still he prayed. He toiled and began to sweat, but still he prayed. And finally, when sweat became blood, the time of his sacrifice was at hand. The olive was about to be crushed. The blood was about to flow. The seed of the woman had been planted. The root of Jesse had grown into a branch, and the fruit of life would be hanging from a cross-shaped tree. The anointing would soon begin.